Hello, and welcome back to Kawartha Sexual Assault Center's online learning hub. Today we're going to be talking about how we can be a supportive friend, family member, or partner in a situation where someone close to us, or even someone we don't know very well, confides in us that they've experienced some form of sexual or gender-based violence. This is a question we get asked a lot, as it's a big concern for many people that if they are in a situation where someone discloses to them that they've experienced sexual violence, that they won't know what to say in response, or they'll freeze up and not have the words, or they'll end up saying the wrong thing to the survivor. These are very, very fair concerns to have. However, we have a list here of 5 simple phrases that we use all the time in our work that we think can be really, really helpful in these situations. Now, when we say simple phrases, we don't mean that this subject matter is simple. Disclosing sexual harm is an incredibly difficult thing for the survivor who's talking about it, and can also be a really, really difficult thing for the person supporting to hear about. So while the subject matter itself is not simple or easy in any way, these phrases are simple enough that they're easy to remember, easy to have maybe written down as a note in your phone so they're always on you, and knowing that you can use these in the moment, coupled with actively listening to the person and displaying empathy, that can really, really help in the moment. So our first phrase is "thank you for trusting me." Again, very short, very simple, but it means a lot. Like we said, disclosing sexual harm or violence is an extremely, extremely difficult thing for a survivor to do. People are probably not going to disclose to just anybody in their life or just anybody who will listen. People are most likely going to disclose to people that they trust, that they consider a trusted person in their life, whether that's someone that they know and are really close to, or even somebody that they don't know very well, but that they feel a really great connection with, or that they feel supported by. So using this phrase to sort of acknowledge that, acknowledging that I recognize that maybe I am one of the most trusted people in your life right now, and that's really, really hard to share even if we do have a close connection. So thank you for trusting me with that information, right? Letting that person know that we recognize that this is probably not an easy thing for them to talk about, regardless of what our relationship is like with them. Our second phrase is, "I am so sorry this happened to you," right? Telling people that, again, recognizing that this is a really difficult thing to talk about, but that I'm also sorry that you ever had to experience this in the first place. And this one couples very nicely with our third statement, "I believe you," right? And being very, very intentional with those words and saying out loud that what you've shared with me is really, really hard, and I believe you. Survivors need to hear that. Even if we might feel it inside, it can be really, really important to outwardly share that with that survivor. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases where people disclose, or a lot of cases that we read about in the media, we hear people questioning folks, questioning survivors. So we want to really, really clearly state to this person that what they're sharing with us, we believe their stories. We believe survivors. We believe that people do not make up stories of sexual and gender-based violence, right? And this can kind of go hand in hand with something that we don't want to say to folks is we don't want to question the survivor with what they've shared, right? We are just being a support person in this person's life. It is not my job to act like police or lawyers or judges, right? It is not my job to ask questions about it. It is not my job to collect evidence, right? So while we might think we're being helpful and showing interest by asking more questions about, well, what happened? Well, are you sure about that? Asking questions that start with why or why not, right? Why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this instead, right? In our mind, we might be asking those questions to show that we're interested and we want to know more. But to a survivor hearing that, what that can sound like is, "Oh, I don't necessarily believe what you've told me." you have to give me more information for me to believe what you've told me. Or there's something that you could have done differently in this situation that would have changed things, right? So even if we don't mean it, asking those why or why not questions can inherently display victim blaming mentality, inherently display that there is something that the survivor could have done or could not have done that would have completely changed the situation. And that's not going to be helpful in this moment, right? So again, even if we might think we're being supportive by asking those questions because we want to know the details so we can help, we don't need to know the details if somebody hasn't shared that with them, right? What somebody shares with me is what they've chosen to share with me, and I need to say, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I believe you. Simple as that. It is not my job to ask more questions, right? Our fourth phrase, how can I help you right now? This can be a really big one because, again, sometimes when we're receiving a disclosure, we often kind of feel like, okay, well, now I'm responsible for a lot of things. You know, I have to fix everything. And a lot of these situations, there's nothing we can do to fix it. There's nothing that I can say to somebody that fully takes away the pain that they've experienced from sexual harm, right? I don't have that ability, and they have every right to be hurt, upset, sad, angry about what happened to them, right? So there's nothing that I can do that is going to just fix everything and solve all the problems, right? And that can be really overwhelming to think of too, right? Because there's many different paths people might take in their healing journey, right? So trying to think of all the things in the future, right? That's really, really difficult. That's going to be overwhelming for us, but also for the survivor. They might not have thought of anything past, oh, I feel like I want to share with this person, right? And that might be all that they've thought about in this moment because it's taken so much mental energy, it's taken so much for them to get to a point of feeling ready to share. So asking them a whole bunch of questions about what they want done, you know, down the road and here and here and here might also be really overwhelming. So focusing on right now in this exact moment. How can I help you right now? Not only might that help bring down, right, the energy, if that person is kind of experiencing, because they've disclosed, you know, they might be feeling a little bit heightened or something like that, right? Focusing on what we can do right now inherently brings us to a state where we're trying to do some grounding, bringing ourselves to the present moment, helps us focus on things that we can actually do in this moment. And asking that person, not necessarily just offering a whole list of things, right? Because that can be overwhelming, but how can I help you? Or what do you need right now in this moment, right? You can reword it a little bit. This is just kind of the base of it. But give the survivor a moment to sit and think about what it is they need right now, right? Again, they've gotten to the point of feeling like, okay, I'm going to disclose. Let's take a breath together, right? Take a deep breath, few deep breaths in and out. Okay, what could we do right now that would be helpful for you? Maybe that is that person right away wants to get connected to supports. Okay, well, let me help Google, right? We'll find things. Do you want me to help you call someone? But that's not necessarily going to be everybody's first step, so we don't just want to jump right there without asking the survivor what they want. It might be, what do you need right now? They might have just needed someone to listen, and they don't want to talk about it anymore. Maybe they need a place to stay, right? And they hadn't really thought about that till now, but hey, maybe I can crash on your couch. Or, you know, I think I'd just really like a cup of tea or a glass of water, or I'd like to talk more about it with you, or I'd like to cry a little bit, right? It can look like a million different things, but we have at least more control over that, and we can offer supports right now in the moment. That's going to help not overwhelm us. That's going to help not overwhelm the survivor. That's going to show them that we really care about their well-being right now. And being honest, right? I'm not a professional, so then letting people know, kind of our last phrase, you are not alone, right? You are there to support them there. But also, if they are looking at other kinds of supports, you are not alone, and I can connect you to people who can help. We don't have to be superheroes, right? If I'm not one of those professions, then I can't claim that I am going to do all of those things, but just letting folks know that they don't have to go through this alone, that you are a support person for them. And so again, you'll do what you can for them in the moment, but if there are other supports that they want to look at, that you can also be there to support them through that, right? If they need connecting to agencies, if they know what they want to do, but they'd like a supportive person there with them, right? You can be that person. So hopefully these are some helpful phrases for you. Another thing that often comes up too is that as human beings, we tend to get very, very uncomfortable with silence. We want to fill that silence with different things because we start to think about, oh, well, maybe it's awkward, or maybe I should have said something in the silence. It is okay to let silence sit, right? And it is also okay to let that person know that you just need a minute to kind of compile yourself, right? If somebody discloses to you, and again, you're kind of entering that fight or flight mode yourself a little bit, where you've just heard something really difficult and are trying to figure out what to say, saying to them, again, thank you for trusting me. That sounds really difficult. I'm sorry, I just need a moment to kind of compose my thoughts, if that's okay, but I'm still here with you and I'm listening. Right? We can be honest about that and we can share that with people. We're not being a bad person. We're just admitting, like, hey, that was really hard. I can recognize that that must have been really hard for you to share. Hearing it was really hard too, and I just want to take a minute to breathe, compose myself, make sure I'm fully present with you before I share, right? Taking that moment to calm ourselves down as well so that we can get to a mental space where we're able to think back on these kinds of phrases, and again, that we don't panic and go right into those other questions that, again, might not help. We really shouldn't be asking questions of the survivors unless it is, what can I do for you right now? Is there something we can do right now to keep you safe? Right? Those sorts of questions we can ask. And acknowledging as well that, again, disclosing sexual harm and violence is really, really difficult for folks. But once we've supported that person, we've gotten them what they needed in the moment, we've connected them to anybody else they'd like to, or we've set up a time that maybe we'll check in with them again if they didn't want any other supports right now. Also taking a check-in with ourselves, because it can be very, very difficult to receive a disclosure, right? It might trigger something in ourselves, or it's just really, really difficult to hear. So also making sure that we take time after to check in with ourselves and see if there's anything that we need in the moment. Is there something that you can do for yourself right now that would help you feel better? Is there someone you could talk to? Not disclosing information that you've heard from the person, but just, is there someone you could talk to and say, hey, I supported a friend through something hard and I'm having a hard time now, so could I come over? Could we do this, right? You are also allowed to do that as well. So those were our 5 phrases for supporting a disclosure of sexual or gender-based violence. Hopefully you find these helpful. Again, these are really, really easy to remember or have on your person, in your phone, in a note, something like that, that you can use. We use them all the time at the center. They are very, very helpful. And again, supporting a disclosure can feel really, really difficult, but hopefully these are ways that we can make everybody feel a little bit more comfortable in receiving disclosures.